Assalamualaikum. I am Mian Shahid Tunio from University in Hussain. Today I am here for the presentation which is assigned by Mian. The contents of presentation are: number 1, what is economics and its types; number 2, what is economic growth and economic development; number 3, what is gross domestic product and its types. So, what is economics? Economics is a social science concerned with the production, distribution and consumption of goods and services. It studies how individuals, businesses, government and nations make choices on allocating resources to satisfy their wants and needs, trying to determine how these groups should organize and coordinate efforts to achieve maximum output. Economics is the study of how people allocate scarce resources for production, distribution and consumption, both individual and collectively. The economics is a social concern with efficiency in production and exchange and uses models and assumptions to understand how to create incentives and policies that maximize the efficiency. Economics formulate and publish numerous economic indicators such as gross domestic product and consumer price index. Capitalism, socialism and communism are the types of economic system. The types of economics. Economics can be generally be broken down into macroeconomics, which concentrates on the behavior of aggregate economy, and the microeconomics, which focuses on individual consumers and businesses. So, number 1 type of economics is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics focuses on individual, how consumers and firms make decisions. These individuals can be a single person, a household, a business organization, or a government agency. Analyzing certain aspects of human behavior, macroeconomics tries to explain their response to changes in price and why they demand what they do at particular price levels. Microeconomics tries to explain how and why different goods are valued differently, how individuals make financial decisions, and how individuals best trade, coordinate and cooperate with one another. Macroeconomics topics range from the dynamics of supply and demand to the efficiency and costs associated with producing goods and services. They also include how labor divided and allocated, uncertainty, risk and strategic game theory. Second type of economics is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics studies an overall economy on both national and international level. Its focus can include a distinct geographical region, a country, a continent, or even the whole world. Topics studied include foreign trade, government fiscal and monetary policy, unemployment rates and level of inflation and interest rates, the growth of total production output as reflected by changes in the gross domestic product, and business cycle that results in expansion, booms, recession and depressions. Micro and macroeconomics are intertwined. As economists gain an understanding of certain phenomena, they can help us make more informed decisions and allocating resources. Many believe that microeconomics, foundations of individuals and firms acting in aggregate, constitute macroeconomic phenomena. Second number topic is economic growth and economic development. What is economic growth? Economic growth is an increase in production of economic goods and services compared from one period of time to another. It can be measured in nominal or real terms. Traditionally, aggregate economic growth is measured in terms of gross national product or gross domestic product, although alternative metrics are sometimes used. Understanding economic growth. In simplest terms, economic growth refers to an increase in aggregate production in an economy often, but not necessarily aggregate gains in production correlate with increased average marginal productivity. That leads to an increase in incomes, inspiring consumers to open up their wallets and buy more, which means a higher material quality of life or in standard of living. In economics, growth is commonly modeled as a function of physical capital, human capital, and labor force and technology. Simply put, increasing the quality or quantity of working age population, the tools that they have to work with, and the recipes that they have available to combine labor, capital, and raw materials will lead to increased economic output. There are few ways to generate economic growth. The first is an increase in amount of physical capital goods in the economy. Adding capital to the economy tends to increase productivity of labor. Newer, better and more tools mean that workers can produce more output per time period. For a simple example, a fisherman with a net will catch more fish per hour than a fisherman with a pointy stick. However, two things are critical to this process. Someone in the economy must first engage in some form of saving in order to free up the resources to create the new capital. And the new capital must be the right time, in the right place, at the right time for workers to actually use to productively. Second method of producing economic growth is technological improvement. An example of this is the invention of gasoline fuel. Prior to the discovery of the energy generating power of gasoline, the economic value of petroleum was better and more productive method of transporting goods in process and distributing final goods for more efficiently. Improved technology allows workers to produce more output with the same stock of capital goods. By combining them in the novel ways that more productive, like capital growth and the rate of technical growth is highly dependent on the rate of savings and investment. Since savings and investments are necessary to engage in research and development. The last method is the increase in human capital. This means laborers become more skilled at their crafts, raising their productivity through skills, training, and trial and error. Or simply more practice, savings, investments, and specialization are the most consistent and easily controlled method. Human capital in this context can also refer to social and institutional capital. Behavioral tendencies toward higher social trust and reciprocity and political or economic emotions like improved protection for property rights are in effect types of human capital that can increase the productivity of the economy. Economic development means different things to different people. On a broad scale, anything a community does not foster and create a healthy economy can fall under the auspice of economic development. Today's economic development professionals are trying to harder than ever to define their field in terms that are more constrained and silent to policymakers, the public and other professionals. Economic development is concerted effort on the part of the responsible governing body in the city or country to influence the direction of private sector investments toward opportunities that can lead to sustained economic growth. Sustained economic growth can be provide sufficient incomes for the local labor force, profitable businesses, opportunities for employees, and taxes revenues for maintenance and infrastructure to support this continued growth. There is no alternative to private sector investment as the engine for economic growth, but there are many initiatives that you can support to encourage investments where the community feels they are needed the most. They are business retention and expansion enhancing existing businesses. Number 2, business expansion, attracting new businesses. Number 3, business creation, encouraging the growth of new businesses. Number 3 topic is what is gross domestic product and its types. So, what is gross domestic product? Gross domestic product is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within the country's border in a specific time period. Is a broad measure of overall domestic production. It functions as a comprehensive comprehensive scorecard of a given country's economic health. Through GDP is typically calculated on an annual basis. It is sometimes calculated on an quarterly basis as well. In the US, for example, the government releases an annualized GDP estimate for each fiscal quarter and also for the calendar year. The individual data sets included in this report are given in real terms, so the data is adjusted for price changes and is therefore net of inflation. Gross domestic product is the monetary value of all finished goods and services within a country during the specific period. GDP provides an economic snapshot of a country used to estimate the size of an economy and growth rate. GDP can be calculated in three ways: using expenditures, production, or incomes. It can be adjusted for inflation and population to provide deeper insights. Though it has limitations, GDP is a key tool to guide policymakers, investors, and businesses in strategic decision making. Understanding gross domestic product. The calculation of a country's GDP encompasses all private and public consumption, government outlays, investments, additions to provide inventories, paid in construction costs, and the foreign balance of trade. Of all the components that make up a country's GDP, the foreign balance of trade is especially important. The GDP of country tends to increase when total value of goods and services that domestic producers sell to foreign countries exceeds to total value of foreign goods and services that domestic consumers buy. When this situation occurs, a country is said to have a trade surplus. If the opposite solution occurs, if the amount that domestic consumers spend on foreign products is greater than the total sum of what domestic producers are able to sell to foreign consumers, it is called trade deficit. In this situation, the GDP of a country tends to decrease. In addition, there are several types of GDP measurements. Nominal GDP, the GDP evaluated at current market prices. Real GDP, the real GDP is an inflation adjusted measure that reflects both value and the quantity of goods and services produced by an economy in a given year. GDP growth rate, the GDP growth rate compares one quarter of a country's GDP to the previous quarter in order to measure how fast an economy is growing. GDP per capita. GDP per capita is the measurement of GDP per person in country's population. It is useful way to compare GDP